Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. At BriteVibe, we believe everyone deserves to be happy. But in today's world, everywhere you turn, there is division and negativity. At BriteVibe, we have created a global movement to bring 8 million people together who are inspired to live bright, live bold, and share bright vibes. Alone, it can be hard to change, but together we can change the world. Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. Gordana Biernat, welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. Did I get your name right? Did I have my close?
You did.
Okay.
Perfect.
Because I had to
Thank
say
you.
it about 1,000 times in my head as we were getting ready. So you wrote a book in 2017 called #Know the Truth, Why Knowing Who You Are Changes Everything. And you're one of Oprah Winfrey's top 100 favorite people on the face of the earth. Is that? No, but
That's so true.
Yeah. I love it. That is so true. But do you still do some teaching then with her organization?
No.
Okay, you don't. Okay.
No, Super Soul 100 is a collection of people that she sees as visionaries in the world and trailblazers in raising consciousness globally.
Wow.
So that's all it's been about, to raise the consciousness globally. And I do this through social media because I'm very active on social media, but I also do it through writing my book and talking and, doing all the stuff that everyone else does. But it's not a question of teaching for Oprah. It's more like using my voice to raise the consciousness with whatever I'm doing on social media. So Twitter, Instagram, and that kind of media, I try to reach as many people as I can. And actually, it's all about helping them balance themselves in a very, 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 very polarized world right now. So
yes,
that is what it is.
Okay, and so just in the brief pre-show we had, we were talking about the book and how this is a very unique book. This isn't your normal book. How about you tell us why it's so unique?
It's unique because it's used by the readers in a way that I didn't intend it to be used in the beginning, because I thought that I was writing a book that you should be reading from cover to cover. And that's not how my readers are using it. Of course, many of them read the book from cover to cover, but there's another thing going on, and it's highly synchronistic, because there are 231 truth thoughts in the book. And if you think of a number between 1 and 231, then you just look it up in the book and you use it as an oracle. You use it as something that will guide you during the day. And it's because the book is truly about knowing who you are. Every single page will remind you of who you truly are. And I'm not telling you who you are. What I'm telling you is that when you know who you are, then you know who I am, and you know who everyone else is. And then we can talk about the illusion that we are creating here. But we are all one consciousness, looking at the world, this co-created world through different perspectives. So truly, when I know who I am, I cannot hurt you because I know who you are truly.
And so you're opening up more and more. I've got all these questions, all these trails I could go down. This is fun. So I'm sure you're not afraid of any of my questions.
Nope.
So I'm just going to start off the top. So who are you?
That's a big question. That's a really big question. If I would answer truly, I would answer authentically and truly, I would say I am the stillness observing the movement. I am the observer of my own creation. That is who I truly am. And so are you. Then you would ask me of my labels, what I see myself as, what this stillness is looking for. That would be something different, because I would be describing the illusion that my ego is creating here. And then you would know my personality. You will know my desires, my fears, my worries, my fascinations, my imagination. That is what you would be knowing if I would be talking about the illusion that I'm creating. But who I truly am cannot be hurt by anything in this physical world. It is eternal. It is the stillness looking at its own creation and interacting with its own creation. That is who I truly am.
You were born, and day one after you were born, you started talking like this. No.
No.
No. So it's probably been a process, but
Mhm.
at what point did something click where you started understanding, or you had the realization, or you had the truth
Mm.
come to you of who you are? At what point, what was that catalyst, or at what point did that kind of, and when I say catalyst, kind of the beginning of the understanding of awareness, when did that happen for you?
Mm. Well, if I would say that I don't have an off button when it comes to this. I'm looking
Right.
at the world, always looking at my relation to whatever it is that I'm looking at. So
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, I'm always in this observer mode. I'm
Mm-hmm.
observing myself doing
Mm-hmm.
things here.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I can remember, I've been doing this, but
Oh,
I
okay.
couldn't, you as a child, you can't describe that. You can't say,
Right.
oh, I am so aware of what I'm doing. It's not like that. It's just that that's the way I perceive the world.
Ah.
So there is a specific moment when I am 11 years old and I stand by the window, and I think I write about it in my book. I stand by
Mm-hmm.
the window and I'm looking at the stars. And then I'm closing my eyes and I look at the stars again. And when I close my eyes, I can see the stars. When I open my eyes, I can see the stars. And I realize that my imagination and the stars, the starry sky, the vastness out there are made of the same fabric, because I
Mm.
can see, if I close my eyes, I can still see it. So my imagination is as vivid as the real world.
Mm.
And I think that's the first time I realized that there is something going on where there are no boundaries, actually. But
Mm.
I was born into a family where you didn't talk about these things. My parents came to Sweden. Sweden is where I am, by the way. Right now, I'm speaking to you from Sweden. They came to Sweden in the 1965, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
from the Balkans, and they
Mm.
came as workforce.
Oh,
So they
interesting. Yeah.
started working immediately. They worked in a factory, both of them, and they did not. Also, I was a girl, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not a culture where girls are meant to think too much. They're more meant to be planning for marrying and having kids and being in the kitchen. So
Right.
I didn't feel there was space for me to express these kind of thoughts.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
There was no place for me. And for a long time, it felt very lonely because I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't speak about these things. And I felt sorry for myself because I couldn't speak to my parents about these things. But at the same time, I realized why it was like that. If I would have been able to speak to them, they would have corrected me. They would have
Mm.
given me their version of reality. And it
Right.
wouldn't be the version that I had. It wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be my own version. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a benefit in it, but it took
Mm-hmm.
me years to get that benefit, to go back and get it, because I was so angry at them that I was,
I bet.
it wasn't my childhood wasn't the best of childhoods, if I would say.
Right.
My
Yeah.
father at the time, I would say that he had a mental illness, but you
Mm-hmm.
didn't speak about these
Mm.
things in the 1970s. So nobody
Mm-hmm.
understood that. And we were all under his spell, so to
Mm.
see, because he
Mm.
was hovering with this illness over the family, and there was no space to be myself. I couldn't be myself. I had to read him all the time. I had to
Mm-hmm.
scan him to see
Mm.
how to
Yep.
please him in a way. You
Mm-hmm.
know that
Mm-hmm.
most of us understand that, who has had a tough childhood. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, I had this anger and resentment and sadness for many, many years,
Mm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
felt that I was mistreated. And
Mm-hmm.
then now, when I look back at it, when there's been forgiveness and there's been a lot of work, I
Mm-hmm.
can look at it and I can see the benefits of this, because I had to allow the thoughts to grow and to expand in their own way without a grown-up telling me what it is.
Mm-hmm.
The first grown-up that actually talked to me about the stars out there was a teacher, because I asked him.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what are these things, out there?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, it's the same thing as the sun. And the minute he said that, I understood that there are planets around our sun. So if these are the same, it expanded my consciousness. And I remember the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, of course, grown-ups that I could speak to, but there was something very, very strange in my own family, which forced me to keep my thoughts inside of my head, never allow them to come out. And now I'm sharing it with the whole world. So there's a paradox in that. Yeah.
Yes. Here, mom and dad, read this book. Damn it. These are my thoughts.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And so mostly then the work you do now, you wrote the book, your social media stuff, but it's really about expanding consciousness, expanding awareness, reconnecting people, even in the title, who we really are. So reconnecting people with who they really are. And how typically are you finding success, I guess, with that?
I am. I really am, because I feel like we're living in a time where there's a lot of pain, but there's also a lot of illumination, because as painful as pain is, it always leads to some kind of illumination. And there are a lot of people that are open to it, because when you understand that when you go through the pain, you will find yourself on the other side without the pain. You are willing to look at things. So I find that there is more willingness today, even though we live in a much more polarized world and a much more harsh world in a sense, because there's a lot of opposing thoughts going on. But I feel that there is success in it, because there's more willingness. People are much, much more willing to look at themselves. They're much more willing to change what needs to be changed, because it releases the pain. It releases the stagnation as soon as you're willing to look at it. So I feel that it's easier now than it was, say, 10 years ago. It really is.
Just more people have more awareness around that coding it and pushing it down and all that stuff doesn't work, right? I mean, that's where we have all kinds of issues in our lives where we, I think as human beings, we're all good at avoiding, or I shouldn't say good. We're all to some degree programmed to avoid pain, like as a survival mechanism, right? Like instinctually. And I think though, as you walk along this journey, or not, as we walk along this journey, we get to a point where we just know that we've tried enough things to avoid the pain that it's still there. It's like, no matter what I drink or what I eat or who I talk to or what job I have or whatever, family, married, not married, kids, or not kids, all of this stuff, it doesn't ever actually heal that existential wound that's underneath all of that coping, I guess, all those coping mechanisms. And I guess,
yes.
So feel free to expand on that thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I see pain as a signal that I'm out of alignment with something, because when I'm in alignment with something, everything flows and there is no pain. Now we live in a physical world where there is a polarity. There is night and day, there is black and white, everything is polarized. So I'm supposed to make choices. And sometimes when I make bad choices, I will experience pain. And the pain is actually a signal that there is another choice to be made, that I need to look at something. It's a signal. So if you avoid it, to me, it's like, sitting in a room where you have an alarm going and it's a noise and you can't get rid of the noise, and you can try to get rid of it. But as long as you don't find the button and press the button and say silence, it will be on all the time. Sometimes we get used to it, so we don't hear the noise and it's still there. We don't know what silence is because the noise will always take over. So living in that noise, in that pain, it's not beneficial, because you need to see it as a signal. It's just a signal. It's nothing we need to avoid. It's a signal that something needs to be corrected, looked at, illuminated, go through it. It's nothing scary, but yet we experience it as very, very
Of course.
scary. I want to go there, and that's why we block it and we try to push it down like a balloon underwater. How long can you hold it there? It won't stay there.
And so how do people navigate that? I mean, literally, like, so how do you guide people to navigate, that pain? Are there certain questions you use? Are there certain focus, or, let's say somebody's avoiding, maybe they're not happy with their job, or they're not happy with some life circumstance. and they're experiencing angst degree, some degree of angst, some degree of like discomfort, pain. So how do they navigate that? How do they get the courage to know that it's going to be okay on the other side? Maybe is another way to ask that question.
That's a good question. Well, it has to be, you have to trust it. And it's almost like it's almost like there's faith. You have to have faith in it. And it's easier to talk to people who are more spiritual, who think that there is something larger than life, larger than themselves, that there is something beneficial going on. It's easier to help them over to the other side. It's much, much harder when you're focused on the body and the five senses and the scientifically proven reality, so to speak. So it's very hard to get. These people are much, much tougher to navigate through this. And for me, for some reason, I have attracted people who believe that there is something bigger than themselves in this world, who trust that things are going to be better if they're willing to look at things. So it's just the courage or the willingness to look at it. So that's easier for me to navigate with those.
Of course.
And, I've also come to the conclusion, it doesn't help if you just sit and meditate and you find the stillness within and it's cool while you're meditating, and then you're off into the real world and nothing works. You don't know the stillness because it's so much noise out there. So what I do is I talk about the micro moments that are always there to give yourself time to correct your navigation. So being very, very present in whatever is going on around you, being present, you will find that there's always time to make the right choice. And you're the one creating that time. So I talk very much about, with my clients, I talk very much about that moment between when you see something and your reaction to it. There is time to look at this and say, is this true? Like Byron Katie, she talks about, is this true? This is one of the greatest questions ever, asking oneself and being honest, being brutally honest when you say, yes, it's true, because it's never true. It really isn't true. So finding that space is what I do all the time with my clients. I help them find that space. And it's a question of being very, very present in everything.
And let's dive into that then too. And I had Byron Katie on the show. She was a delight. That was truly she was a delight. That was like at the end of the hour, it's just like, I don't know what happened, but I just feel good. She was just she is so super present all the time. I mean, it's almost like you can watch a thought form in her head because she's so present. It's almost like you can kind of watch it reanimate her. She's like sitting there and all of a sudden, and then she would say, I don't even know if I'm making any sense. I'm like, no, go on. This is good stuff. So that word gets used, the word present gets used a lot. What is being present? Because I think for so often people, and I know, I've done meditation stuff. I've been to India several times. I've studied with monks. I've done Tony Robbins stuff. I've done lots of different stuff, but this word gets used all the time in spiritual circles. So, so what is your definition of being, or the definition of being present? What does being present mean?
Being present means that you're able to observe your own actions, that you're able to observe yourself in the now moment. Like, for instance, what I do is I ask a question. I say to myself, what is my state of consciousness right now? And then I can't answer, well, I'm angry or I'm happy. I have to answer my state of conscious. I am in a state of anger. I am in a state of happiness, which means that I am separating myself from my feelings. I separate that so that I am able to observe. When I can observe it, it's easier for me to correct or change because it's not me. It's not sticking to me. Like if I say I feel angry, then I am that anger. But if I say I am in a state of anger, it's like opening the door, walking into a room, and there's a state of consciousness there. And I look at the door and I see, oh, it's anger. No, I don't want to go there. And I close the door.
Right.
Because I am present. The observer in me is present. So I can see what it is that I'm doing. Like I can see that I'm walking into a room where it says anger on the door or sadness on the door. And I have a split second where I can choose, okay, I feel sad. So I'll walk into the room and see what it brings me. I become more conscious of why I am doing what I'm doing. I become more conscious of my state of mind. I become conscious. And that to me is to be more present.
So you're just,
or to be present. Yeah.
So you're situationally aware of where you are in relation to the feelings that you're having. Because
yes,
because I've had other guests come on the show and we talk about feelings. And as a man, I have at least two, I think, happy and pissed. But and that's not true. I have a whole range of feelings, and all men do. But we talk about that feelings a lot of times betray what's actually happening, right? Because we believe that we are angry. We believe that we are sad or we are depressed or we are whatever label you want to put on it. And it doesn't give us that perspective of, I'm an eternal being, you know, I've heard a cliche saying, I'm an eternal being having a human experience, right? So it gives us that perspective. And so often it's like, and I've got some confusion actually, as I say that, because you hear, well, you should go with your gut instinct or your gut feeling, but then also we know that feelings so often betray and we make bad decisions because of anger or sadness, right? So yeah. Gordana, in your ultimate wisdom, please shed some light on poor old Matt Lilly and help me understand the difference between gut feeling and feelings that are betraying or leading us down a path of probably making not the best decisions.
Well, this is a little bit more, it's a sticky one, because whatever feelings you have in the now moment, you have to be aware if they are a conditioned response to something, if there is a trigger going on.
Got it.
And you have to do the work to go back and look at your past. And as I said in the beginning, forgive, let go, release whatever you can, almost like rewriting your own past, to find the golden nuggets in the past so that you won't be triggered in the now moment. Because usually when we are feeling anger or something, it's a question of a trigger that pokes the ego. Right. The ego is poked and you are not able to be present, because as soon as the ego is poked, you fall asleep. You step aside and the ego takes over. And this is why when you're in a conversation with someone and there is lots of things going on and you say things that you actually don't want to say, and then afterwards you wake up and you say, why did I do that? Well, you didn't, your ego did. And your ego is connected to the conditioning that you've had as a child. And it can be very, very subtle. I don't think that we're ever done with that. Right. If you are in a body, there's conditioning going on.
Right. Yes.
It's impossible to lose everything, but to become more aware of it and know why you're triggered helps you in that. So you know, is this a real response? Is this a real feeling, or is this a trigger or a conditioned response, like a habitual response to something that I've been taught as a child?
And can you give us?
Usually for me, it's like if there is a positive vibe, if it allows you to breathe in and breathe out, trust your gut. But if it doesn't, then it's not true. There's something like Byron Katie would say, it's not true. You have to do your inquiry and see where it is not yours to carry.
Right. And I struggle. I'm for the listeners, I'm the guinea pig, right? So I struggle with this whole, I feel like I've made some decisions in the past, and those decisions led to a lot of pain for myself and for others. You know, COVID was not very kind to me in the business world. And so I've watched that. And so now I second guess right? I second guess, and I'm almost to the point of not knowing which direction to head, because it's so like, well, I this felt right. Even though, maybe more than likely I was probably pushing it, and it wasn't, even if it wasn't feeling right, it got done, right? I just got it done. And so now it's almost this state of, how do I trust God? How do I trust instinct? How do I trust the gut feelings? How do I reconnect and know that it's true? I'm having a real hard time figuring out what is actually true.
Can you expand on that when you say what is true? What is it that you're referring to?
So if I'm going to make a decision about something, let's say I'm saying, okay, should I do this business venture or not do this business venture? Something super simple. I am having a hard time. Before, it was kind of like there was just this, yep, we're going to go do that, right? But because of the last 2.5, 3 years, now it's kind of like I'm second guessing or questioning, how do I know? And I guess to some degree I don't, but how do I know that's coming from a place of alignment with what I need for my higher self? Well, and that's not even the way I want to say that. And alignment with what I want for myself. And it's just the ego playing a pattern, right? It's just going to create more chaos or more drama or more whatever, right? How do we know? And I guess you've touched on a little bit, but bring some more clarity to that, because I'm having a super hard time trusting God, I guess, if I want to put it that way.
Well, trusting God, I don't know if I've ever told a client to trust God.
Interesting.
Because the way I see it, as I said before, we are one consciousness looking at this world through different perspectives. That consciousness could be God, but God will always have your back, regardless of which.
Right.
But at the same time, trusting God explores this reality through you, or the consciousness that I was talking about is exploring this reality through you, which means that everything you do is fun for that consciousness, because the consciousness that we're talking about, there is stillness, nothing is going on. And it's kind of boring, so it divides itself into small points of consciousness.
Yes.
And then it explores something that is hidden from it. Like, it doesn't know everything, because the consciousness knows everything. And it wants to explore the world through you. So it doesn't want you to trust God. It wants you to trust yourself.
Interesting.
Because that's the funny part for that consciousness to play, because it's unknown. In my book, I write about us seeking the funny rush of a surprise. That's the goal here, because you can't have the funny rush of a surprise if you're living in total stillness forever and ever in eternity.
Right.
You need the funny rush of a surprise. So relaxing and allowing yourself to be surprised is what I would say. I wouldn't say trust God. I would say trust yourself, and trust that whatever is brought to you will be beneficial for you in one way or the other. What you do is you label something and say, if this doesn't happen, I will not be happy, or I will be miserable, or this will happen. So you're literally spewing seeds of doubt in front of you, which will bring you to a jungle of doubt. So you need a machetes to go through that jungle of doubt, but you don't have to. It's a suggestion, but you don't have to do it that way. You can do it another way. But I understand where you come from, because you come from a place where there is a little bit of fear, and there is evidence that this fear is true, because it did something to you the last time.
Yes.
So you know how that feels. So you don't want to go there anymore. And you're focused on what you don't want instead of what you want. And this is a big difference. It's like saying, I hate war. You could easily say, I love peace. And the two things sound the same, but they come from different places. There's a different frequency in it. One is, like it says behind you, good vibes, and the other one is not so good
vibes.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah,
No, go
it's a
ahead.
question of understanding. When you say you trust God, it's something outside of you, and that can create doubt. That can create a frequency of uncertainty. But if you say, I trust myself, and whatever it brings to me, it will be beneficial. What your job is to find the benefits in that. So what happened to you during COVID, and by the way, you're not alone in
No,
this.
right,
There's many of us. So
Yes.
really, you're not.
Yes.
But what happened to you when you look back at it and you find the benefits in this, it releases the fear and it allows you to go forth without the doubt and fear when you find the benefits. This is what I was talking about when you go back in time. Like I had to go back into my childhood because otherwise it brings very, very it's a gravitational pull in your emotions if you're not done with it. If you don't find the benefits in it, it will be a gravitational pull. When I was a child, I would see myself this way. I could see all the other children, they were able to do stuff. They could do anything they wanted, and I could not because I was very strictly my father didn't allow me to do things. He was very controlling. So I felt literally trapped. I would see the other children as having wings. They could fly. And I had a backpack filled with bricks. That's how I felt. And I tried to jump, but I couldn't. And then when my son was born, and I was 31 when he was born, I decided to open that backpack and see what kind of bricks am I carrying, because I don't want to give him that backpack. So I opened the backpack and I'm looking at it and I'm saying, oh my God, it's gold. I can sell this gold. I can do things. I don't need wings. I can do stuff with this.
Right. Yeah.
So finding the gold in what happened to you during COVID. And that can release you from the fear of making mistakes, of not being able to trust your gut, because your gut, you could trust your gut before, and now COVID happened and you can't trust it. So find the benefits. This is, if I would speak the spiritual language, I would say the universe wants you to look at this and find the gold.
Right. I like it. I wrote it down. I'm writing notes. I'm taking notes.
Yay.
This is I mean, I love this. I love the podcast. I love that it, how we get good information out in the world. And I also love that I'm a student every time we do a podcast. I love it. I'm writing down, find the gold, right? Which I have done in my childhood, but I have not done in the last, I did have a guest. He's the psychotherapist for the Detroit Pistons, which is a basketball team here in the United States. And we were talking about this whole kind of hangover from COVID. And he said, we were describing it like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And he said, but the problem here is that it's not it's still occurring. The trauma hasn't stopped. There's still ramifications of it. It's like, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to look at it, because I have not processed these things. And to your point, found the gold in them. I'm still kind of confused and kind of lost and dazed, or dazed and confused, I guess, in the aftermath. There's still a cloud of dust. And I'm like, okay, which way am I supposed to walk through this cloud? And so I think that could be good to focus on. What are the benefits that have come out of it, which I do see some of the benefits, the detachment from like financial, like I was super tied to financial success was my success, right? Identity, super wrapped up in everything I touch turns to gold. So therefore people love me because I help them make money, or I help them do this, or I had all these fun labels. And then through, COVID and then the hangover of COVID, it's been like watching all of that. Somebody the other day, I was sitting down with a person who had invested some money in something that I did that failed miserably, and which was like the first time that I had such a public failure. And they said, well, I really don't want to tarnish your reputation here in town. I said, I could give a shit about my reputation here in town. I said, I am, I said, at this point, I am just focused on loving my family, figuring out what's best for my family. I'm focused on that. If people like me, don't like me, I really don't care anymore about the public. I mean, obviously friends, family, I do care whether they like me or don't like me. But as far as the public image, I was like, I just don't care. I mean, if they're not living my life, I'm not living their life, right?
Yes, exactly. And here's the thing, what I feel with the pain of
Mm-hmm.
COVID, because there
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of pain in this, because there's change, everything is
Right.
changing
Change.
all
Yeah.
the time. Yes. So it focuses you on what truly matters,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and you realize what truly matters. Of course, your old identity, your ego and your
Yes. Yeah.
old
Mm-hmm.
identity wants the old stuff back because it gave you your fix. You could
Yeah.
feel
Right.
that there was some value in whatever you
Right.
were
I was
doing.
important. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And now it's shifting and it's giving you more truth
Mm-hmm.
because you're valuable to your family, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to find your own value within
Mm-hmm.
you without all of these things around you. But it's naturally it's hard because you've been living in a different way before that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
habitual. And
Right.
that's the ego trigger that I'm talking about. That is an ego trigger. Every
Mm.
time you feel like you start comparing yourself and you think, I
Mm-hmm.
should be doing this, I should be doing that,
Mm-hmm.
because your ego wants its fix.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe and say, no, I don't need to do any of these things. And then you align and find yourself in that alignment and feel. That's when you need to feel. Okay, so what feels good? If it makes you heavy here, then it means that it's not for your heart. Your heart is supposed to be light as a feather when you leave this earth. Otherwise, you have to come back here and do it all over again. And I don't know if you want to do that, but it has to be light as a feather. So how do you do that? Well, you keep everything love and above.
Mm.
That's the good vibes you have behind you.
Yes.
Love and above. Everything below is too low.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the reminders. Love and above. See, that's a
I
good one-liner. I'm writing that down. Is that in your book? Love and above?
No, I think it's someone else that talks about it.
Oh, is
Maybe it's
that
in my book. I don't know. It just came
right?
out like this
I
because
love
it
it.
has to be love and above.
Well,
Always.
if it's not the title of a book, we should Google it. If it's not the title of a book, that should be the title of your next book, Love and Above. I think that just
Love
is
and
so
above.
Love and Above. I
Yes.
love it. It's I do
Yeah.
love it. Love and Above.
But where it comes from actually with me is that when I started doing social media, I found it really polarizing out there. Everything, you have to have an opinion about everything. And I thought, this is not how I vibe. This doesn't
Right.
work for me.
Right.
So I decided that if it cannot pass my what I called love filter, I will not put it out there. So I have this love filter that comes up. I read it 2 times, 3 times. And if I can't find the love in whatever it is that I'm posting, I will not post it. So that to me is love and above.
Got it. I love it. I think this
It's
should
the
be the name
same.
of a book. It should be the name of a
Yes.
website. I don't know if it is. You should go get it before I do. As soon as we get off, it'll be loveandabove.com. What is that a thing or
Yeah.
not?
Yeah,
I love it.
we'll have to check it. Let's see who does it first.
Okay, love and above. Well, you're the author. I'll let you have it. But
It's okay.
all right, let's play with the book. Do you want to play with the book? I'd love to play with the book.
Yes, I do.
So I wrote down a number earlier. I don't know if it still applies because I feel better now. But you said 0 or 1. Sorry, 1 to 231. It feels like I'm playing the lottery.
Yes. And your number is?
My number is. So I wrote down 198. I wrote down 198. Yes,
right.
I don't know why. That was just the first number that came through my head. So
sounds like
this is
That's
how readers are using the book, right? This is how you've noticed that this is kind of it's almost like my horoscope for the day or something.
My goodness. Here's
here
your
we go.
truth thought. It's 198. Looks like, let's see if we can find it.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Okay. So here we go. It says, every time you choose love over hate, love over fear, love over anger, you change your frequency from scarcity to abundance. Stay in love. Love and above.
Love and above. See, I think this is the thing. I think this is a thing. So yeah, I wrote the number down earlier at the beginning of the show. Then we do it at the end. So I think for viewers and for listeners, you can see how the book works now. See, you saw the space I was in, saw what I'm struggling with, and then you pick up the book and it speaks to what you're experiencing in the moment. I think it works. I think that's I understand now why your readers use it the way they do.
Because it's an oracle. If I would read the same thing, it might not mean the same thing to me, but it brings you what you need to know in the now moment. And we can have fun with this, but I truly think that the fabric of the universe is made of synchronicity. It is the machinery behind everything. Everything is exactly where it's supposed to be now and forever. So everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. So if you learn how to interpret things around you, to see them for what they truly are, messages to you, then it's easier to navigate this world. It really is easier to navigate. It's like understanding yourself, understanding that you are the observer of a mirror image of yourself, and you are also the creator of that. So at the same time, you are observing, creating, and consuming your own reality. At the same time, you're doing this all the time. So that is why the now moment is so important, because that's the only place where you can shift and change. You can smile to the mirror and it will smile back to you, because you're making a shift in it. And it's small, small, small things all the time. You can't forget it. You have to stay awake and understand that you're the creator. As soon as you're in reaction mode, say that I give you something that makes you react, then you are actually creating your reality based on my frequency, because I made you react. So I lowered your frequency or I heightened it, but it's still, you're not creating it from your own frequency. You're creating it from the one that gave you the reaction, or the one that made you react, or the one that is throwing something at you. So it's like fishing. If you look at, let's say that you look at the news and they tell you, oh, these people died there. And you're taking the bait and it pulls you like this. So you need to detach and come back to who you are always. The observer. One more thing.
No, please do. Please do.
Because people say, well, the highest frequency we can vibe on is love. And it's not. It's not the highest frequency. The highest frequency from my perspective, where I am, is understanding. So love feels like your heart needs to be open and you need to feel a lot. I think that in the stillness, understanding is the highest frequency. When you understand things, you're vibing at the highest frequency.
Interesting. That's an interesting perspective.
Understanding would be like standing under my highest self. That's where I vibe here. Standing under my highest self means that I am not feeling, I am observing and understanding, trying to make sense of what I'm observing without reacting. That is why I feel like understanding is the highest frequency, not love. Love is fun and it's cool and it's nice and it's vibing really, but I still think that understanding is a higher frequency.
And I think you should explore that in your next book, Love and Above.
Love and Above.
And I just, if nothing else, I just want to be able to, like, since I'm not famous, I want to write something like, when people have read the reviews, right? I want to write in the jacket, the book jacket, just some review, and then Matt Lilly, obscure person. Inspired by Matt Lilly. There we go. Love and Above. I love that. And so if there was one thing that you wanted people to be crystal clear on, if there was only one message, if you had like however many minutes, but this was your one message to the other 8 billion expressions of consciousness on the face of the earth. Yeah. This is like a game show. So if you had one message, if you had to define it and crystallize it down into one single message to help move humanity forward, what would that message be?
It would be that fear truly is an illusion. It is an illusion, and that who we truly are cannot be hurt by anything in the physical world. That would be it, I think. If you can digest these things truly, then you understand that it opens up all the possibilities that are there. If you understand that fear is an illusion, and that who you truly are cannot be hurt by anything in the physical world.
I think you won the prize. I think you win the Tesla or whatever we're going to give away for the prize
Yay,
for the best
thank
answer.
you.
And I totally agree. And that was a great, I totally agree that fear is at the root, especially as I was listening to your answer, the fear is at the root of all human suffering is fear.
Yes.
Right. All true suffering. I'm not talking about you broke your arm and you're going to go to the doctor. I mean, I understand you're in pain. We're talking pain. Suffering is much different, right? Suffering is a lingering thing.
Yes.
I usually look at suffering as the avoidance of actually the experience of pain.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because I'm holding it at bay. I'm suffering because I'm choosing not to actually just experience the pain. And in my own process, the pain usually doesn't take long to process it when I'm truly with the pain. And then it turns into something beautiful. There's like love or compassion or some awareness. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know all this was, this door called pain was such a gift. I didn't even know it, but I've been avoiding it for a decade, right? Because I don't want to feel it. So I'm going to suffer, which is much worse because I'm spending time in fear, right? Because I'm fearing the pain. So I avoid it by just suffering. Right? So,
exactly. Of course, there is physical fear, like if you have a bear standing in the door.
Right.
But that's different because you run away and then you can relax.
Right.
But the other fear, the fear of the unknown, the unknown, I think that is the fear that is an illusion, because we're supposed to explore the unknown. We're supposed to find this funny rush of a surprise. How can you have a surprise if you know everything?
Right.
So you have to be willing to explore the unknown, but how can you explore the unknown if you're afraid of it? So that's where I mean that fear is an illusion. And as you said, if you don't care about your reputation or what others might say about you, well, you're actually releasing a lot of that fear, allowing yourself to be free. Because that is one of the other things that have been very important to me in my life, freedom, to be free in all senses. I'm looking for this freedom everywhere I go. And I know that the more I know who I am, the more free I am.
Right.
So if I need to trust something, then that is that. I know that the more I explore who I truly am, the more I go into this observer mode, the more I go into the stillness within me, even in the smallest of moments, I am free. In that space, I am free.
Yes. And you reminded me of, you reminded me of I won't say it was a prayer. It was more of a demand and a plea. Right before COVID, which was, I said, I don't want to be afraid anymore. Right. And I was just very adamant that I don't want to be afraid. And then like a month later, the whole world shut down. And ever since then, I'm coming out of not being afraid because I'm letting go of all the stuff that I was afraid that would happen, because it did happen. Right.
There's
it was like
the golden nugget.
Right. That's what I'm thanking you. This is my way of thanking you for saying, yes, I'm starting to see the golden nugget in that. Yes, everything that I was afraid of pretty much happened, but I'm still alive, and I still, I'm still able to, have these conversations. I'm still able to love my kids and love my wife and find joy. So yes, I would, I guess in a way I would do it again I would do it again to release the fear, because the fear was overwhelmingly controlling me and full of anxiety. There was just a lot of anxiety and fear of being found out to be something, or being something that was it was a lot of stress or a lot of pressure from a business standpoint. Yeah.
Exactly, because it is the labels and the layers that these labels put on you, so that your authentic self cannot explore this reality the way it's supposed to explore it. The first time I laid eyes on my son when he was born, I had a moment of illumination, because I looked at him and I know that every parent will see the same thing. They see a perfect being. When you look at a child, you see a perfect being. And I saw a perfect being. And I was thinking, he is authentically perfect. I cannot teach him anything. I
Mhm.
need to release the layers of
Mhm.
labels that I put on myself. And I need to
Mm.
go back to the core of being who I am with him,
Mhm.
because he is perfect as he is. I actually need to protect him from all the labels that are going to be
Right.
put in.
Right.
So what this COVID thing might have done to you is to
Mhm.
actually peel off some of the
Mhm.
layers that are not yours, that they
Mhm.
don't belong to you anyway. You've explored them. They made you
Mhm.
happy for a while, but they're not supposed to be on your journey
Right.
anymore.
Right. Yes.
That's how I would look for the golden nuggets in this, because there's lots of them. I can sense it.
You're like, oh,
There's
you are
lots of
such a
them.
hot mess, Matt. We could just sit here all day. Number 4, number 5. There's 231 ways, Matt, that we need to to
Yes.
align your consciousness, right?
But you know what? Before we end
Yes,
this, I
please.
want you to
Yes.
do one thing with me.
Yes.
I want you to do
Yes.
one thing.
I'd love to. I love play
To,
games.
let's see here. The last true thought in my book
Uh-huh.
is 231. And
31.
I want you to repeat after me.
Even
After me.
okay. All right,
Okay.
here we go.
So I want you to put your hand on your heart
Yes.
and take a deep breath in and breathe out. And now repeat after me.
All right.
I am the light in the darkness.
I am the light in the darkness.
I am the love in the hate.
I am the love in the hate.
I am the calmness in the storm.
I am the calmness in the storm.
I am the courage in the fear.
I am the courage in the fear.
And that's who you are. That's who we all are. When we are vibing really in alignment, this is a natural thing. You are the light. You are the calmness. The other thing is the movement outside of the stillness. The other thing is a choice you can make.
Right.
Because the universe won't go against you. It will say, here's something, go and explore it. There's some fear, but you can say, I'm the courage and the fear, and then you explore the fear because you're the courage. Why wouldn't you explore it? You're the
Right.
courage.
Right.
You can explore the darkness when you know that you're the light. And that is as close as you can come to trust God. That's good vibes.
I love
Good
it. I
vibes
love it.
only.
Good vibes only.
Yes.
So the title of your new book is Love, Love and Above, Exploring the Unknown. See, I even subtitled Love and
Yeah.
Above, Exploring the Unknown. See, that's what you gave me today. So that should be the title of the new book. And when you write it, you're going to have to come back on. But I will
Yes.
also say you can come back on whenever you wish. I certainly have enjoyed today's conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you, honestly, for working with me personally. I did not plan for this to be a session, but I hope it benefited others that listen to. Because I think there's lots of people out there. I know that there are many people out there in similar ways are experiencing this whole last 2 or 3 years. So hopefully it's been a benefit, and I feel like it has. So thank you so much for coming on and continuing to do what you do. And people can obviously stay in touch with you through social media. Because you're on social media, and then also a website I found. What did I find today?
It's mypowertalk.com.
Yep, exactly.
And my handle is mypowertalk everywhere. And if you Google my name, you will find everything about me. So it's easy to find me. I'm the only one in the world with this name. So
yes, I've never run into anybody with even the first name Gordana. I was like, oh, very interesting. So
that's a usual name from where my parents come from.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
from
I've never heard that before.
the Balkans, they come from Serbia. So it's a usual name. But Biernat is my husband's name, and the combination is unique. There's no one else in the world like me.
You are unique, and we love you for being unique. So
we're all unique.
Yes, totally. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And anytime you'd like to come back on, if you just are walking around one day and you're like, you know what, I need to go back on that BriteVibe podcast and share some more good vibes, you are always welcome. The door is always open at our show.
Thank you so much. I had a blast. This was so fun doing it. It was so spontaneous, and I love that.
Yes, I love it as well. So thank you so much. And I have no idea what time it is in Sweden. I've never been to Sweden, but I'm sending love and blessings to Sweden for you and your family and all those in Sweden.
Thank you so much. It is received.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for being a part of the BriteVibe podcast. For more information, go to britevibe.com. That's BRITE Vibe, VIBE.com. Thank you for listening.